Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à cet événement Perspective Quantum numéro 7 sur les faits saillants de la conférence Inside Quantum Technology qui a eu lieu à New York en novembre dernier. So the event today will be will occur in English. It is our great pleasure today to invite a panel of participants as well as one of the organizers of the conference to talk to us about that world-leading conference. So this recap today is co-organized by INTRIC, ISEQ, Québec Quantique, COPL, Optonique, and NUMANA. I'm Nicolas Godbout, Director of INTRIC, Institut Transdisciplinaire d'Information Quantique, and I will be presiding the conference today. As a special event today, so we're talking about this a recap of this conference inside quantum technology in New York, which did happen in hybrid format. So there was, I hear, more than 100 participants in person in New York, and several of them, the three panelists that we see right now, Felix, Johan, and Chloe, were there in presence. They would be able to relate to us their experience. We also have with us Christopher Bishop, who I will invite to also come on stage here. So you can activate your camera and microphone, Christopher, please. Who was the master of ceremony, is usually the master of ceremonies at these different editions of this conference Inside Quantum Technology. At any moment, all participants are invited to ask questions. You can write questions in the chat. I will keep an eye on them and make sure to relay them to the participants. So don't hesitate at any moment to ask questions. And at the end of this panel, which will have a duration anywhere between 30 minutes and 1 hour, depending on the interest number of questions. After that, we will revert back to the networking mode of the Remo platform, and you will be able to discuss with the participants or among yourselves. All right, so to begin with, I would like to start with introducing the members of the panel today. I will start with you, Christopher. So Christopher Bishop has a quite diverse background, has worked at IBM in the past, has been, as I mentioned, master of ceremonies of the different editions of this conference, Inside Quantum Technologies. So can you, in a few minutes, tell us about your background, your experience, what brought you into the quantum information business, and the general gist of what is IQT?
Okay.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Yes. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Actually, someone's from the UK, so it's toward the end of your day. Thank you, Nicholas and team. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Christopher Bishop, and as Nicholas said, I'm the Master of Ceremonies. Quite an interesting title, right, for a tech event. But I basically oversee and run the Inside Quantum Technology event, meaning I introduce speakers, I do opening and closing remarks, I help introduce panelists, I do some fielding of Q&A. The one we just did in New York, I'll talk a little bit more about it after everyone introduces themselves, but we did it, as Nicholas mentioned, as a hybrid for the first time. We've done 6 of these events, one in person in Amsterdam, one in person in Boston, which is where I first met the organizers, the executive director, Alan Meckler, and Lawrence Gassman, who's the president of IQT. And they asked me if I would get involved somehow, and I said, sure. We were planning to do it live in New York 2 years ago, and then the pandemic arrived. So we recast it. We did 4 versions of this virtually, just like this, me sitting in my home office again, with people all over the world joining. And the one in New York was quite interesting. I'll talk in more detail about it later on, but we had live people in the room, carbon-based life forms, sitting in chairs, which was pretty exciting for the first time in a couple of years. And then we had about 500 people online. We streamed it and covered a range of topics. We're doing it again. I'm going to talk more about that, but we have an event in The Hague at the end of February focused on quantum internet, and another sort of full-up, broader scope event, IQT, happening in San Diego in May. So that's me. And I'm, again, delighted to be here talking to you about quantum and excited about quantum information technology. Worth mentioning maybe that I was at IBM for 15 years doing a variety of things, a couple stints at corporate headquarters. Worth noting that I joined when Deep Blue, an early AI instantiation, beat Garry Kasparov at chess in the late 90s. And I left 15 years later after IBM Watson crushed the reigning grand champions at Jeopardy. So I had sort of an AI bookended career at IBM and then on into quantum. So again, thanks for inviting me.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I will ask Johan Justin to introduce himself. So Johan is a founder of Iqt Photonics, so you can give a few words about your background and the company.
Yeah, so hello everyone. So my name is Johan Justin. I have a PhD in material science, worked a lot in optics, and moved recently to quantum technologies and founded the company just called Iqt Photonics Technologies. So basically what we do at Iqt Photonics, we are building hardware for the generation and processing of quantum photonic signals. So we basically have state-of-the-art solutions that are readily implementable into the existing telecom network. And we are trying basically to pave the way for quantum networks with a parallel and multi-channel information processing. So we basically do this by enabling the scalable generation, multiplexing, and processing of photons, and all this within the one single optical fiber, widespread today, and also via low footprint and power efficient hardware. So in fact, our technology stands a little bit at the basis for communications between quantum computers, whatever platform they're going to employ. But it's also essential, an essential element for ultra-secure communication. So like for the distribution of cryptographic keys, so making safe networking capabilities easier and cheaper. So we are really trying to build the backbone of the quantum internet in order to, let's say, distribute quantum resources and qubits all around the network.
All right, thank you. So I expect that you had a lot of interest in quantum photonics, quantum communications, secure communications.
Exactly.
And we'll come to that later. Next up is with us Chloé Archambault, who works at Anion Systems. So a not so young startup now, getting bigger in the Montreal region with the aim of building the quantum computer. Chloé, a few words about your background and the company, Anion.
Thank you, Nicola. So my name is Chloé. I joined Anion 3 years ago. So as Nicholas mentioned, Anion is not that young. The company was founded in 2015, has been growing since then. So Anion is a manufacturer, manufactures and develops and sells superconducting quantum computers from top to bottom. So we really do everything, including the quantum parts, but also the electronics and the cryogenics. A bit about myself. My background is in engineering physics. I have a master's in quantum chemistry from Polytechnique Montreal. So I am very much involved at Anion in the technology development on the quantum side. But because also of past experience and because we don't have such a big team, so I wear different hats based on my experience from my previous jobs. So I'm also involved in partnerships, and this is one of the reasons why I went to IQT this year. So partnerships, business development, intellectual properties, those are all things I get involved in on top of the science. So lots of things to do and very busy.
Good. So the networking aspect was very important, I expect, for your participation in the conference.
Exactly.
Thank you. And last but not least, Félix Baudouin, who is the Director of the Quantum Technologies at Nano Academic Technologies. Go ahead, Félix.
Hi, very nice to be here. So just briefly, my background, I'm a theoretical physicist. My background is in modeling of quantum hardware that is used to implement quantum technologies. So I did a master's and PhD in that field, working on spin qubits and superconducting qubits. I also did a postdoc on quantum noise, quantum sensing, noise characterization, and all of this in collaboration with experimentalists. So I have always been, I like to be at the last step before an experiment is actually done, right? And then work with the experimentalists to help them understand the results and try to make predictions. So I joined Nano Academic in 2019, and since about a year, I'm the Director of Quantum Technologies there. And at Nano Academic, so we're a scientific software company. We're based in Montreal. We're founded in 2008. Our main branch is atomistic simulation tools. So these are tools that are used to predict materials and device properties from first principles on an atom by atom basis. So we have a quantum transport simulator that can calculate currents flowing through small transistors, atom by atom. This simulator is called NanoDecal. We also have a large-scale density functional theory software that can simulate systems comprising up to 100,000 atoms, which to our knowledge, is very unique. Now, as Director of Quantum Technology, my mandate is to leverage our expertise in quantum physics and device simulations to create a new branch of the company, which is developing software for computer-aided design of quantum technologies. So our goal is to provide the quantum engineers for the software tools that they are lacking to predict quantum device performance before fabrication, so we can save money, save time, and accelerate development cycles. So this is a role that is similar to the TCAD industry in the semiconductor world, like companies like Synopsys and Cadence. So our ambition is to provide the same service to the emerging quantum hardware industry. So our new product, QTCAD, in that field is going to be launched in May 2022. We are now in a beta testing phase with several collaborations in academia, government, and industry. And so we're very excited about this. And yeah, it was great to go to IQT to start networking actually in person with potential partners or customers for this product.
All right, thank you. Next, for the next theme, I would like to start first with the more technical aspect of the conference, like the contents of the program. For those who are listening to us who may not have attended the conference, maybe I will try to let me see. I will try to share a window here. Let's see if this works. It's a bit small. So that's one page of the program of the conference. So we had a 5-day program at the conference. So lots of subjects. So for example, day one, we have emerging quantum processor markets as big themes, quantum encryption, hardware evolution. So I'd like to ask the questions to those three of you who attended the conference. Among these themes and the other ones that followed during the other days, what were for you the most interesting subjects for you, and the take-home messages, the different things, the main important things that you learned during the conference? So, for example, I expect that for emerging quantum processors, Felix and Chloe, that is most probably of great interest to you. What did you learn?
Absolutely. So if I can start by commenting this session on the quantum processor markets, it was very interesting to see the role of each players in that field. In particular, I enjoyed actually two talks mostly. The one from Intel and another one from an interesting startup called ISEQ. So Intel is actually developing spin qubits, silicon-based spin qubits for quantum computing. And they're leveraging their expertise in semiconductors and also their mass manufacturing capabilities to help accelerate developments in that field. And so their claim is that spin qubits in silicon, they are the only technology that is both scalable and directly integratable with CMOS technology. Well, we might argue about that, but this is their perspective, and they're very serious about it. Their main blockers, what they were telling at the conference at least, is that their main blockers is materials issues like defects or interfaces, things that are not very clean. And in my opinion, there are two ways out of this situation. So one that is what Intel presented, and another one that I want to talk about. So the first way is to actually accelerate testing so that you can make many devices, many candidates, screen them, and try to find the ones that have the least defects. And that's what they seem to be very successful at. So they have been focusing on wafer testing, and they claim to now be able to make thousands of electrical measurements on spin qubit chips at 1.5 kelvins, just hours after them leaving the fab. So this is quite spectacular if you compare with the pace of R&D in academic groups, where just fabricating a device can take a PhD student maybe a year, and then another year characterizing, and a year writing the thesis or something. So this is really huge, I think, in terms of testing. This is more like a trial and error approach, where I think a company like us can contribute is that we actually have atomistic simulation software that can make concrete predictions from first principles about those kind of defects or interface issues that are very difficult to measure, actually. So this we think we can help, and this second approach would be kind of like understand more precisely what you're doing. Right? There was another presentation which I like very much from an interesting startup called ISEQ. So they have a very unique technology that's based on electrons suspended above liquid helium. So what they do is they have a chip, a semiconductor chip with some gates on top, very similar to CMOS. But then this chip is immersed in liquid helium, and by applying correct gate potentials, they're able to trap single electrons that float above the helium. And so the helium, this is very similar to a spin qubit if you think about it, but the spin is now outside of the chip instead of being inside the chip. So this actually shields the electron from many of the noise processes that are going on inside the semiconductor. So this is a very interesting approach. They have very high coherence times. This is probably very scalable, and they're also CMOS compatible, provided that you're happy immersing your CMOS inside like liquid helium. But I think this could be very disruptive if it works. They are the only company I know of that is working on this, but I think that's very interesting. And our perspective is that in both cases with our Atomistic software and our new QTCAD software, we think we can make a difference and help those companies understand better what they're doing and have a proper design tool for quantum devices.
Yeah, that's a great example that we have still not seen all the possible roads to quantum processors. That's a very interesting proposition. And also your first commentary integrates into this idea that it seems we'll have to live with noisy processors for quite a few years. And that characterization of actual defects on chips will be a very, very important issue for several years to come. Yes, thank you. Very interesting. We also had on this first day sessions about quantum encryption, quantum safe, and post-quantum cryptography. Yuan, I think it touches pretty much what are of interest, the subjects of interest for Iqt Photonics. What were your main take-home messages during the whole week?
Actually, there was a lot, but especially on this topic that I think that there are a lot of things that are done with quantum random number generators. So we saw a lot of companies like Quantum Dice, but also Kets that is basically working on this to implement that into, let's say, potential QKD communication networks. And yeah, it was very interesting to see the different technology that they have. I'm not going to go that deep like into the technology like Felix did, because I'm trying to be more on the business side now, so I'm trying to have more a business view. But it was very interesting to see how they managed to, let's say, sell their quantum random number generator for something that is not really yet implemented. So maybe also I'm going to talk a little bit more later with the quantum internet, and there are a lot of test beds and things like this where those devices are implemented. And one of the things also I'd like to comment on is also the cost of the hardware for quantum key distribution. And there was an interesting topic that was not really related to QKD, but it was related to basically scalability of quantum technologies. And I think it was Charles Robinson from IBM that was saying that, okay, quantum computers, okay, we are talking about scalability and things like this, but there's not going to be a lot of quantum computers in the world. And so talking about scalability might be a little bit too early. And I think also it applies also for QKD technologies, because we don't have to, so QKD, in order to secure all the communications, we don't need to secure the credit card of every individual. So it's more going to be for governments and military application. So even if it's not a niche market, it can be very, very big. The scalability, like we see it for silicon photonics and or silicon industry, can be at a, let's say, at a different level for quantum technologies. So that's the feeling I had with the hardware for quantum encryption and QKD.
Yes, so still not very, very clear the speed of deployment for the QKD technologies, but with big potential. Okay, and now to you, Chloe, what were the main themes of interest, the take-home messages? I see that they were, to come back to your comment of earlier, of more the business development side. There were also sessions about standards, about deployment, cloud technologies. What were the subjects of interest and the take-home messages for you? Oh, Chloe, we can't hear you right now. Oops.
Unmuted now. So many things to talk about. First thing, it was interesting just to be there to see what people had to talk about. It's an opportunity for us to learn what our competitors are working on, what the customers want to see in a product, what the hurdles we might expect. So when we hear a competitor or another company talking about the challenges they have and so on, it's also interesting to us because it might be in the future. So it helps us anticipate future development. And also it was very interesting for us to be on site. It has been a very weird context in the past few years with so little in-person event with the COVID situation, and also because we've had the past year we've been very focused at Anion working on an important deliverable. So it was time for us to get out there, talk to people, connect with people, and because there's just so much more that you can get out of a in-person conversation, sometimes just be reading between the lines. So that's I would say on the networking part was very interesting to us. On the conference, I mean, there were different teams. You mentioned cloud. That's one I can comment on if you want. Cloud access, more specifically for quantum computers, which is the subject that interests me the most. So what we see right now is that the cloud access is the main mode for quantum computing today. So IBM has a cloud platform, others have one as well. But what was most interesting, I would say, to me, is to see that things are shifting. So we've been talking about cloud for many years. More now, we hear people talking about the need for on-site, on-premise machines. It doesn't mean that the cloud is going to go away. I think there's two different markets, but the on-premise market is growing. It also means that the technology is getting more mature because it's a market that's more targeted for HPC centers, for example. And we've seen also a tendency for quantum companies to bring the classical computing next to the quantum computing. So even IBM, who had its cloud platform, showed very interesting results in which they took the classical part of the computing, because we have to remember that classical and quantum always go together. So just by localizing both of them together, they improved their speed by, I think, an order of magnitude, if not two. It was very impressive results. So that's an interesting result for us, essentially, because that's been aimed for since the beginning, actually. Has always been there to serve the HPC market. And we've always been in the quantum should be an accelerator to classical computing. So we want to have an integrated interface between quantum and classical. So I was very happy to see that this idea is also maturing in the community.
All right, thank you very much. I really want to come back to this in-person experience. That's certainly a subject that I want to discuss. I am personally that I was not able to go to New York and savor the experience in person. I would also like to ask Christopher.
Nicholas, I have to interrupt you. There's some static with your microphone, right? I'm wondering if you could try a different microphone, or
let's try like this. Is this better?
That's much better. Yes, terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
We don't want to miss a
We
word you're
tested
saying.
earlier, it was working, and for some reason it stopped. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
I really want to ask you also, Christopher, who you've been, of course, participating at all these conferences time after time. What were for you on the technical side the surprises, the teams and the new themes that arose, or the new messages that arose during this last edition in New York? Were there on your side any surprises?
Well, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about the event is that it covers a wide range of topics, right? So everything from tech, for sure, deep conversations about, as Felix was saying, electrons on helium. That's pretty wild. Innovative approaches, up to and including policy and regulatory conversations. I mean, we had Whitfield Diffie joining. So big picture perspectives on how are we going to regulate quantum. I mean, it's other lessons we can learn from other innovative technologies like AI, like social, like mobile, maybe, that we can then apply to how, quantum solutions get deployed. Ongoing discussions around use cases. Obviously, financial services is a big area of focus, but other areas, as I said before, that maybe aren't as sort of glamorous or sexy as quantum computing, but things like clocks and sensors. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting conversations going on about where that kind of technology can be applied, and for comparatively near-term benefits. So I think that was interesting. I mean, and again, to Chloe's point, I mean, connecting classical and quantum, that's a marriage, if you will, that's got to be finessed and reviewed and explored and exploited, for sure. So things that quantum can do that, quantum supremacy, right, the classical computers can't do. And then the things that classical will probably continue to do, will always do, things that are more comparatively mundane or day to day. So that was interesting. Also, conversations around cloud versus on-prem, right? So, and I think that's a conversation too that's evolving. I mean, there may be situations where the cloud is the best solution. I'm actually talking to Andrew Horsley tonight. By the way, cheap sidebar, unabashed plug for my podcast. I host something called the Quantum Tech Pod, and I'm talking this evening to Andrew Horsley because he's in Australia. He's the CEO of Quantum Brilliance, and they have a rack-mounted, nitrogen vacancy diamond based qubit quantum computer that they're using, that they're deploying, that they have customers for. So again, the range of solutions too was striking, right? Everything from Amazon Bracket, where you can pick and choose any of 3 qubit solutions, to companies like Quantum Brilliance that are offering rack-mounted solutions, again, for specific kinds of applications, I think, to be fair, but a range of applications and possible use cases. So.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for putting in the chat earlier the program. So all participants, if you follow the link in the chat, you can take a look at the program conference that Christopher shared with us, with all of us. I'd like to jump right in with a question that we have in the Q&A about the questions about success stories from Canadian companies going abroad. I would maybe rephrase the question about the greatest benefit from your presence in New York with contacts with international players. Do you have, each of you, an example of what benefit you got from being there in presence in New York during the conference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the benefit is meeting with people we wouldn't have met in an online setting. Like, just because there's this lack of spontaneity, everything is busy, everybody is busy at home, probably working on other things during the conference, and you have to reach out to people in a more formal way, and you have to have like a clear reason to actually talk to these people. Whereas in person, I talk with people from Cambridge Quantum Computing. I talk with people from IBM. I talked to many people that, and just because we were having coffee together, and then you start talking about what you're doing, and you end up realizing there's more in common than you thought initially. So I think that's the main benefit. To me at least. And also being part of a delegation, I should mention, being part of the Quebec delegation was a big plus, because we could actually meet with our own local ecosystem, which ironically I didn't have the chance to do while being in Quebec for the last my whole life, But ironically, that was a big benefit. And being there as a team, you kind of support each other. So that's always better than to be there as an individual. So I think this was overall a very, very positive experience. And also, I don't want to spoil the topic for everybody else, but something else I noticed is that because it was hybrid, not everybody was there in person, but those who were there in person were really there. Everybody was 100% focused on the event. And so you could actually talk with everybody, and so I thought even for an in-person event, my interactions were much more easy than in other events I've been to.
Thank you for this perspective. Maybe the others can tell a few more words about this delegation.
I agree 100% with Felix. Connecting with people in person is not the same as using online platforms, even though this platform is great, but in person it remains for me the best way to connect with people. I met so many different people. I met with very interesting startups working on super cool stuff, in some cases which are very complementary with what we do. So we'll see, maybe in the future it might lead to joint collaborative projects or things like that. So those are all opportunities that we wouldn't have had if we hadn't been in person. And as Felix mentioned, being part of the Quebec delegation really showed I mean, it showed that Quebec as a whole is a strength in quantum, which I think is important. And it also allowed us to connect with the Quebec ecosystem, which is hard in these COVID times, even though we're not very far away.
I agree also with Chloe and Felix. I mean, networking in person is completely different, and I know I have the example of having a coffee with someone, and then he's telling me, "Oh, you know this guy? Okay, let me introduce you." And then 30 seconds after, I was talking with the guy from IBM. I was not prepared at all, and now I'm having a chat with him regularly, and he's giving us some insights on the technology and stuff like this. So making other introductions. So it's really, really great, actually.
So here, I just have to weigh in as the guy on the other side that it was great to see this sort of, I can only describe it as a gaggle of Quebec quantum brain trust in the exhibit hall. So I had the opportunity to interact with many of you and of your colleagues. You were sort of, it was great to have you all in one place at your table, and I could sort of go and talk to one of you and then talk to another one and go talk to somebody else, talk to somebody at IBM or Quantum Exchange, and come back and have another conversation with yet another colleague from Quebec. And also, I think, to be fair, just to see you all there representing quantum in Canada and Quebec specifically was very impactful. I think for the other participants as well, like, oh, these people are smart and they get it, and they realize that it's important to be here and to be able to hang out and be together physically, and they're taking advantage of it. They didn't drive down from 57th Street. They actually flew or whatever, had to come all the way from another country. And, so that meant a lot. Just to say, it was great to have you all be part of it and represent your organizations. So it's cool. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for this comment too. Maybe I'd like to talk about upcoming events. So Christopher mentioned earlier that there's going to be another event, which is also supposed to be with a hybrid formula in San Diego very soon. Maybe Christopher, you can say a few words, and then I go around the table to probe the interest in continuing these participations.
Yeah. So we, again, based on the success of the event in New York and the ones we've done virtually, we're going to do an event in The Hague at the end of February, I think 21 through 23, and focused on the quantum internet. As you may or may not know, right, the QTech team and University of Delft and there's a consortium between Intel and Microsoft and the Dutch government and the University of Delft that are working on a quantum internet. I think they have 5 nodes. They've been doing it for a while. There's a great article in the MIT Tech Review about it. There's been quite a bit of press. So we decided to do an event there focused on that topic. And again, I think the meta message is, as the focus on quantum increases, we're thinking there may be a need to sort of carve out, if you will, more specificity around conversations, right? As I was saying before, the event in New York was 5 days. So it was Monday through Friday, basically 8 to 5. It was a lot of content. I mean, broken into pieces, as you can see on the agenda, which I put in the chat, as Nicholas mentioned. But it's a lot of content. So thinking, this event in the Hague, we're going to try it out and see if we can do a more topic-specific event, see what the response is. So far, based on signups and speakers who are going to be joining us, it's going to be a big success. But that's the next event. Then the next sort of full-on IQT event is going to be in San Diego at the end of May. And that's going to be 3 days. And again, covering a broad range of topics, certainly from tech to policy and regulatory to use cases, right? That's the key. As Johan was saying, we're trying to get to the business conversation around this. I mean, Bob Suter from IBM, who's the quantum evangelist, right? He would say, what are the use cases that are driving value, right? Certainly from a business as well as sociocultural perspective. So that's going to be increasingly our focus. In fact, we're calling this event in San Diego Quantum Enterprise. So we encourage you to sign up. We may be reaching for some of you. This is me warning you that we're going to probably reaching for many of you to speak or be on a panel or moderate a panel or share the great work that you're doing in Quebec with our broader audience. And again, we're going to do it as a hybrid because I think that's the model going forward. It just gives us so much more flexibility. To be fair, at the risk of sounding moderately disparaging, I was a Q2B as well in Santa Clara last month, right? And it was only in person. So while it was, I don't know if any of you went to it, but I mean, it's fantastic, needless to say. I mean, the speakers, Matt Johnson and, John Preskill and Elias Khan and talking about the continuum, merger, whatever. But I think, to be fair, it was to some degree a missed opportunity because by doing it as a hybrid, while it's more challenging, certainly from a technical and production and logistics perspective, it just broadens the aperture so people can participate not only as audience members, if you will, but as speakers or panelists or moderators and share their expertise, sitting in their home office like I am now, without having to get on a plane and fill up the troposphere with jet fuel exhaust, or rent a car or, stay in a hotel or waste a bunch of Dixie cups in a reception that they're not really interested in, whatever. So anyway, that's the model, and looking forward to it. I also want to mention Iqt Research. So we have a part of Inside Quantum Technology that writes and publishes reports and forecasts, to Gilles' comment earlier, right, asking about where the spend is and how it's trending and where the opportunities are, where the use cases are. So that research is available as well online. Those reports are available, so check those out as well. So that's the plan, and I hope to see some of you at the event, either in person, like we just did in New York, or at least virtually. We also had some people who did both. We had some people who joined virtually for a couple of days at the IQT event in November, and then came to New York and spent a couple of days with us in person in the hall, in the studio, if you will. So again, options, right, for how to participate and how to contribute. So looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. I will take the opportunity to invite all the participants to, if you have pressing questions about the business of quantum technology, about any big picture questions, I think we have a great panel able to answer these questions. So don't hesitate with the time remaining to ask questions in the chat. I will now continue on this on the previous theme and ask the other participants on the panel. Do you think you'll be going in San Diego, and what will you be looking for during the next installments?
Absolutely. If I can start, actually, I'm very enthusiastic about this San Diego event. If I can go in person, I would love to go in person, because this is very timely. We're planning to make our first commercial release of QTCAD in May. So this would be a great event to start promoting our new tool, meeting potential customers, meeting potential business or R&D partners. This would be really a great event for us. This is all I have to say.
Good. I hope to see you there. So, Felix, just a sidebar. I want to ask you if you could just take a moment and talk about the QTCAD thing. Sounds really fascinating, and I haven't heard much about it. Can you share just a little more detail with our audience and with me?
Absolutely. I mean,
what
it's
that
great
is
that you ask. Yeah. So QTCAD is actually a software it's a finite element software. So what it does is you start from a device. It's discretized using elements, and then you have various solvers relevant to quantum mechanics, like Schrodinger solvers, Poisson solvers, and you actually solve for the physics of your device before you produce it. And so you can calculate, you can start from the layout of the chip that you want to make, and then you can make a 3D representation from that layout. You can solve the equations, and you can calculate to be expected fidelity of a gate in this.
Wow.
So it's very specialized towards specific kinds of quantum hardware, but it's actually needed, we think, because it's actually something that comes from our interactions with customers. This kind of tool is lacking in the quantum space, Whereas, for example, in the semiconductor industry, they have already have commercial tools like Synopsys or Cadence that are an integral part of the R&D cycle or the development cycle. So we're trying to fill the same role. Right now, our first commercial release will be for spin qubits in semiconductors. We are already working with industrial partners and academic partners and also government partners at this level to beta test the product and help us with the R&D. And once this is launched for spin qubits, we will keep developing it, keep improving it, and offering other hardware modalities.
Fantastic. So that sounds really. Do you have a white paper or an executive summary or a link you can put in the chat for everybody? So
you can visit our website.
Yeah, please put the link in the chat if you would. I want to.
Academic.com, and there's a list of our products there.
Great.
So I should say in 2 or 3 weeks we're gonna have a completely new website, be much better. Back in a month or so, you probably have it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I didn't mean to sidebar, Nicholas, but I just found it a fascinating topic and thought that our attendees would be interested in learning more about it. So.
Yeah, and it tells us also that we need a lot of still classical computing technologies in order to build a quantum computers. And that's one example. Another question popped up in the Q&A panel. Yes,
if I can just go back, to the previous question, just want to say that Anion is for sure going to be in San Diego as well, except if travel restrictions prevent us to go. But it's going to be actually a great timing for us to go more public, I would say, because we actually just finished building our first quantum computer, fully integrated quantum computer. So it will be an opportunity for us also to publish our specs and start talking with potential customers with real specs now.
Cool.
Yeah, so at Anion, you've been building for years also all this stack, and you mentioned, and that's the gist of a question here in the Q&A, you design and you build your platforms for the bottom up. What is the advantage for Anion of trying to tackle the whole stack?
Oh, interesting question. I would say there are two main advantages. One is for us to control the supply chain. So for example, by building our own cryogenic systems, we're independent of any problem along the supply chain. There are very few supply companies for cryogenics, and the wait times are very long. So we're happy now that we can do that all internally. And the other advantage is also that by controlling every step of the technology, it allows us to define our roadmap so that we make sure that we can scale up, because this is going to be so important with quantum computers. We said that we're going to need millions of qubits to get to a fault-tolerant quantum computer. Getting there is going to need technology and scalability. So by doing everything ourselves, we can make sure that every part of the technology is scalable the way we want it to be.
Hey, Chloe, again, I'm going to interrupt and put on my Master of Ceremonies hat. So, Nicholas, forgive me. Could you put a link to your site and your work in the chat, please?
Yes, absolutely. But it's the same thing as Felix. We're actually working on a new website. So the specs for the quantum computer are not yet on our current website, but they'll be on the next one very soon.
But anything you can share, I think, is good. So people will
Absolutely.
bookmark it, and it'll be the same URL, right? So they can come back when it's updated and look at the updated version. But a chance to share with this group, right?
Yes. And before getting to the next question, Johan, will you be in San Diego?
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, that was a great experience that we had in New York, so especially for networking. And we believe that for the event in New York, maybe we're going to have a product release also. So as this source of entangled photon distributed over an optical frequency comb that basically allow you to make multiplexing and then, let's say, distribute the qubit over the network. And also one interesting thing also that we have already testers and potential customers in the area. So would like to take the opportunity to go there to visit people in Caltech, because we are collaborating with them, and also people from Cisco and things like that. So that would be great also. If we can travel, for sure we're going to be there.
Hopefully, hopefully we'll be
We're
able to
like,
travel.
oh my goodness.
And what I find fascinating is that all three of you mentioned that you want to do product release and product announcements, more concrete offerings during that conference. So it tells me that the business side is coming along now after years and years of research. We're trying to see the actual fruits locally here, even in the province. And among the other questions that pop up in the Q&A, I would really like to talk about the workforce. There's a question about these panels which occurred at IQT New York about women in quantum and quantum competent workforce. What did you see as the big takeaways on these themes?
Do you want me to start, or?
Yes, go ahead, Christopher.
Right. So it's certainly an area of focus for me, again, based on my own nonlinear multimodal career path, right? Sort of ending up in quantum after doing a bunch of different things, including working at IBM and being a freelance musician in New York. I think the challenge is cutting a broad swath, right? Getting, with all due respect, not just science-oriented students interested, but people with skills and proclivities in other disciplines like marketing and communications, like policy and regulatory conversations, like management consulting, like investing, like even user experience, UCD, and biz dev. Somebody's got to sell this stuff. Somebody's got to understand it well enough to articulate the business benefit, to go to somebody at a company, at a client with a P&L and a checkbook, and say, here's how this is going to drive attributable revenue and or improve productivity and efficiency. So again, all I was saying, I encourage the quantum community writ large to, cut a broad swath, like look for people interested in the topic for sure, but who have skills in other areas. Certainly the scientists are at the core of it, right? Developing the technologies, refining it, incredibly complex. Kudos to the brilliant minds, all of you that are working on this. But again, it's moving quickly, and to drive understanding and adoption and ultimately the benefits of quantum information science, we're going to need people with skills across a range of disciplines, right? Ancillary and adjacent kinds of skills. So I say that with a tone of encouragement, right, to any and all of you who maybe aren't particle physicists like these brilliant people talking here, like I'm not for sure, but that are interested in it, find it fascinating, are passionate about the potential benefit, and are prepared to bring some other skill set to the conversation. So I think affiliation with the universities is key for sure. I think we need like quantum courses at Columbia School of Journalism. Wouldn't it be great if there was like a writing for quantum course at at Columbia, or a course at a B school like at NYU Stern, how to sell quantum to public sector or whatever. I mean, I'm making it up, but this is all courseware that's coming. I'm sure of it. Specific courses, and again, at the core of it is educators. Education being the discipline that enables all other disciplines, right? So we're going to need professors and teachers and mentors that can articulate the vagaries and complexities of this new technology and get people excited about it and skilled in it. So
yeah, it's no longer a field that requires PhD in quantum mechanics. Now it's more technical skills, business skills, a broader swath, as you mentioned. Yes, I think there's efforts to be made in that direction. Okay, very interesting.
Just can comment on that. I mean,
yes,
it's really important to communicate also to a very broad audience. and not to scare people about quantum. Sometimes people hear about quantum and they say, "Oh no, I don't understand anything about that," and they don't want to hear that. And communicating, and we had the experience also of writing some press release. And I was talking with people that are more in the communication side, and they say, "Okay, you try to make it nice, but we don't understand anything." So if you want people to understand what you are really doing, you have to really, really, really go at a very low level. And quantum is really, really high level. I mean, there are some stuff that also people don't understand in quantum. Quantum physicists, there are some. So it's really important to communicate to a broad audience.
Yeah, very, very good point. And actually, the now most popular question remaining on the Q&A relates to that about quantum adoption, about your experience with the value proposition to clients. What reception do you get when you discuss with potential clients and you're trying to sell a value proposition? Is it a hard sell? What is your experience on that side?
I can say people are getting more and more interested. Everyone actually wants to try it out right now. And we've seen it at IQT. This is because we're starting to see real applications. We've seen examples at the conference of people presenting results of real problems they've addressed with quantum computers. Now, we need to be realistic. Quantum computers are still very noisy right now. They're not perfect. And it might not yet enable, I would say, the revolutionary application that everyone is looking for, that like groundbreaking application. But still, we're starting to see real applications. There was a startup who commented at the conference, Polaris. They do molecule screening. They screen billions of molecules to see which ones would be the best candidates for drugs. So this is starting to be a real application, and they do that with quantum computer. Their whole business model is oriented towards quantum computing. So in the past, we had seen very small examples of, I would say, test cases, people trying to invert a 2x2 matrix with a quantum computer just to give a proof of concept. But now we're seeing people trying to run applications in the pharmaceutical industry, in aerospace, in materials, in finance. So this is what is raising the interest. And it's just going to get better as we go.
So now you're saying that you're seeing a community of interested users who actually ask the questions, who are actively looking for solutions, and who would be willing to jump in as soon as some concrete products are offered.
People want to get their hands on a machine. So there's two parts to it: getting their hands on the machine and then learning how to work with a quantum computer, which is not just like a normal computer that you would write code to. So there's also a part of a learning curve to go through. But this is what I mean. We're getting there. Companies, it's true for researchers. Well, academic researchers are always interested to tackle new problems. That has always been the case. But now we also see commercial companies and entities and governments who are ready to try it out.
Okay. And Felix, Johan, on your side, about the adoption of your what you're developing?
Yeah, I can say we're not directly interacting with the users of quantum computers, because what we do is more like an enabling technology. So we talk with people who build the quantum computers. But in terms of adoption, yes, I think we have been very successful with our beta testing program. So we have identified key candidates that would be that would benefit from our tool, and contacted them, and our success or response rate was very, very high, I think, and we're getting good feedback from them. So I think this is promising for commercial release.
Yes, and Johan?
Yeah, from our side, we have seen that has changed a lot during the last 2 years, actually, talking to potential customers And now we see that there is really an interest of big companies. So I'm more talking from my perspective for example, telecommunication companies or networking companies. They are really trying to learn also what is going on. So they kind of looking what is going on in the area. They are very interested. They are building quantum labs also. So they need also building blocks basically to build their own experiments. And they are looking at the ecosystem of how it works. And they are becoming more and more interested because I guess they see the potential and they don't want to miss the quantum revolution. So.
All right. So yeah, I think that the general takeaway is that we seem to be really living this transition from abstract ideas to real applications and real products and real companies. And it was really great to hear all these examples from all of you. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A.
Hey, Nicholas, can I jump in? I want to,
Yes.
since we have real world practitioners, if you will, I want to just sort of follow on that thread, your earlier question, and ask certainly Chloe and Johan and maybe Felix, although you're providing enabling technology. Do you see adoption in specific verticals? So Chloe, you'd mentioned the Polaris, right? Shahar Khanan's company in pharma and drug discovery, drug development. Just wondering what your take is based on dealing with the real world. Like where do you see, traction?
I
Are there
think
specific?
pharma and materials in general is going to be the first application that we'll really see with quantum. For that, it's very simple. It's because we're using quantum computer to solve a problem that's quantum in nature. So the between is natural between the two of them.
Huh.
And this is why we're going to see. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the first groundbreaking.
And materials. So what I mean, so can you be more specific about materials? Like where in material science? Like
Anywhere
I know
you want
BMW
to.
has an experiment like painting cars, right? They've used some optimized.
Anywhere where you want to simulate, for example, the electronic structure of a material. So we see it a lot for these or energetic materials is an example.
Yeah.
And chemical reactions in general.
That's interesting. Quantum, where quantum is the nature of the problem or something. That's very astute. Thank you for that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What about Johan? What are you seeing? Are you seeing traditional users of networks, which is kind of everybody, but I'm thinking like proprietary data that's getting shared, maybe healthcare or military defense data or legal data or.
Yeah, the military are working a lot on that, especially in the US. They are putting a lot of efforts on trying to understand the advantage of entanglement, for example. So this is one of the key things, and also the banks starting to be interested, starting to be looking into that. Even if it's point-to-point communication, still. They're still going to have to transfer data in a very secure way. And there is another thing also, data centers also are becoming increasingly interested in QKD in order to transfer the data between the different centers. Sometimes you have the data center, the main one, and then you have a backup one. So you need to be able to transfer this data in a very secure way. But yeah, one of the most active, let's say, for now is the army, actually.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Huh. Thank you.
Yeah, for us, it's more, we're more doing an R&D tool. So it's really our customers are mostly engineers and scientists, but they come from different sectors. So the most obvious one is the academic sector, of course. It's also the most for us because they are very dynamic and looking forward to new ideas, new tools. And it's also, in the long term, a good strategy to work with academia in the sense that they're training the next generation of scientists and engineers. So if this next generation is trained with our tool, then it's a big plus for adoption in the long term. And we also have interacted with people in the government, but also in the semiconductor industry, which is quite interesting. So we hear a lot from Intel, but I would say that most major semiconductor companies now have some quantum activities as well, that they're not necessarily so vocal about, but I would say that I would claim that they're all looking into it. So
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
so
maybe-
that's another sector. It's a different way to interact with these people, but yes, it's another sector for our tools.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Thank you. Yeah. Amazing.
Yes. Well, we've already been going for a little bit more than an hour. So at this point, I think I will give a chance to everybody to continue chatting on the tables on the remote platform. I really want to thank all of you for participating in this event. Thank you very much. And for all the participants, our next webinar, Perspective Quantum number 8, also hosted by ISEQ, we'll have a presentation by 1QBit, of course, another company in the realm of the quantum computers. Will be presenting their technologies for the next webinar. So take a look at the announcement. And on that, I will conclude the session today. Of course, you can continue discussing on the tables. Goodbye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you,
See
Nicholas.
you in person soon.
Yes. Great to be here.